Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Nvidia daily update video. So today, let's go over Nvidia, this absolutely monstrous move that the stock has been seeing pretty much all of today, holding very well as well. And yeah, I'll give you my thoughts going into Nvidia as we start to get, pretty damn close to earnings. Obviously, as earnings gets closer and essentially the day of earnings and as, earnings happens, anyone's guess. I'm not going to pretend to know what the hell happens to Nvidia on earnings, but worth mentioning that earnings is getting close. It is getting close. But nonetheless, I'll give you my thoughts moving into earnings, what I personally think can happen for Nvidia. And yeah, if you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice, and I'm not a financial advisor. And of course, if you enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts on the charts, etc., guys, well, I do share my thoughts with my members every single day as the market's open and trading. So we'd love to have you there for just $3 a month. That's all it is. You get access to all my Tesla updates, different time frame analysis, options flow, also broader market updates as well. So like SPY, Qs, VIX, things like that. Or $5 a month for tier 2. If you're interested, also includes Nvidia. If you're interested in those updates as well, again, as the market's open trading, right, every single day. Or for $7 a month, tier 3 USD, of course, it gives you access to the full package. You get access to the first 2 tiers plus access to my tier 3 posts on YouTube, the private YouTube membership section, of course, where it's essentially non-Tesla, non-Nvidia stocks that I share, and access to our private Discord. I do chart requests with members every Sunday. We have an active chat room for tier 3 members. We'd love to have you there. Again, check it out if you're interested, guys. We'd love to have you. But jumping into it, Nvidia closing the day up almost 6% on the day, closing at $199 per share, almost as if this drop never even happened. Right now, I was saying how because this drop was so steep, once it does rebound, it should be a pretty sharp rebound, because this was like very, very aggressive. I must admit, this was an extremely aggressive drop, much more aggressive than I expected. So usually when things like that, and especially on a strong stock, when these drops are this aggressive and it finally gets ready to reverse, the reversal is usually also pretty powerful in the opposite direction. But nonetheless, Nvidia, it's at a key spot now, right? It's at my first target that I was talking about, which was about, I don't know if I mentioned in the video, I was telling my members about this, right? About $201 per share, kind of where this line right here is. That's my first target on Nvidia. I do expect potential short-term rejections from there. Really wouldn't shock me if we get a short-term rejection around here. Maybe come back down, retest 195, even potentially back down to the 9 EMA, for instance. Get a small little retest as well. But honestly, overall, the way I look at Nvidia is as long as 195 continues holding as support, I actually expect it to go, at the very least, make one more high, essentially as we start heading into earnings. So maybe for the next, couple of days or so, we get some chop, maybe a small retrace, come back down to the, 195 or close to 195. And then from there, most likely get a nice little pump from there, come up and most likely fill this gap right here, sitting at about 206 and change. And that will be my kind of target going into earnings, right? So something along the lines of this is what I expect right now for Nvidia going into earnings, more or less. Now, if we start losing 195, that could be obviously a bit of a different story. But as of right now, especially with this kind of strength, I don't expect it to lose 195 just yet. Now, obviously, everyone and their mother is going to be looking at this astronomical looking gap up, right? This is a substantial gap, which at some point will get filled. That's just, this is a very large gap. This will get filled at some point. But I'd be pretty surprised if it gets filled before earnings, to be completely honest with you, right? I do expect this kind of momentum and this strength to overall continue, even if we see this small little pullback first, going to, again, back to 195, 196, something like that. So that's kind of again, just very simple, right? That's just a very simple way that I can look at it and how I personally foresee Nvidia's price action developing for the next, week and a half or so, right until the earnings actually begin. And then again, from there, it's anyone's guess, right? I'm not going to try to predict what happens with earnings, what doesn't happen with earnings, but up until then, we can do our best, and that's kind of what I believe. You can see the 4-hour SMI as it got to the bottom once again. Right, we got to the bottom of the 4-hour SMI, and we got to or not the bottom of the Bollinger Band actually, but we got to the bottom of the 4-hour SMI, which was, pretty good in and of itself. And that once again marked yet another bottom, the way it pretty much did here, the way it did here, and the way it pretty much did back here as well. Pretty powerful stuff. Pretty simple stuff as well. So Nvidia looking pretty solid. And there's really not much more to say. Really, it's a very simple, very quick update on this video. Overall, either we go straight up to 206. I don't think we will personally. I think we'll probably get a small little, at the very least, a cool off sideways, if not a small retrace to 195. But then I do expect that to overall set up a nice little move higher, because the 1 hour is now very, very extended. This will give time for that 1 hour SMI to cool off a little bit, come back down to 195, and then head higher. And that will be that overall move into earnings, in my opinion, of course. Let's see how that actually plays out. It's pretty simple. I mean, there's really not much more to say, to be completely honest with you. We are still holding on to that weekly, trend line here, which is great. If this trend line is ever lost, essentially closing a weekly candle below like 185, roughly 186. well, a little bit higher actually, like 186, 188, 188, because, it's obviously ascending. Yeah, that could be a problem. If we ever get a weekly close below that, that could be that problem. But, I don't think we'll get that. And if we do get that, it'll most likely be after earnings. What else is there? I don't think there's much more to say. Let's go to the options flow on Nvidia and see what's happening over here. Let's see. So someone actually bought in a pretty nice put, 125 put for December 5th. I mean, that's pretty bearish. Someone's clearly not looking forward to earnings in terms of bullishness. So let's see how that develops. But overall, definitely more bulls than bears. You can see 43 million confirmed bullish flow, only 10 confirmed bearish flow. But towards the end of the day, a little bit on the more mixed side, right? I wouldn't say it's heavily leaning one way or the other based on that sort of final hour, if you will, of flow. But obviously throughout the entire day, the bulls were strong, but the bears are starting to kind of slowly wake up right here as we hit $200 per share, which is my first target. That is my first level of rejection, with my second one, which I still expect closer to 206. But yeah, pretty simple stuff. Quick update. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. Peace.